Good evening, Poe fans, and welcome back to Poe Discussions with Jeannie and Carmen. Hey, Jeannie,
Hey, Carmen.
how's it going tonight?
It's kind of cool. I got this cat over my shoulder, just
Yes,
feeling like home because it's usually my own cat staring at me.
this is
But
true.
I thought it was creepy enough to go with the day.
Yes, absolutely. And so we have a very special guest tonight, and her name is Hannah Raven. Welcome,
Hi.
Hannah.
Hi.
Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Uh, okay, golly gee, where to start? Well, my name's Hannah Raven. I am from Sydney, Australia. I'm an actor and a burlesque artist, and absolutely obsessed with Poe. So, yeah, everything I do is inspired by his work. So, my Burlesque Theatre Company does Poe-inspired performances, and yeah, as an actor, I'm really inspired by the short stories as well. So I try to sort of create shows based around these short stories.
Okay.
And yeah, also just a bit of a nerd about bats and cats and all that witchy stuff. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Right up my alley. I like it. Okay.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
So we were just discussing, so we are on Saturday evening and Hannah is Sunday morning. So it's to me, it's kind of Poe-esque crossing that boundary.
Yeah.
What's really Poe-esque is it's like surreal because we're
Mm.
time traveling.
That's right. And
Yeah.
Hannah, I was going to say, but kind of before we get into some more things about you, so we just did our degree episode on surrealism for the month, and we talked about French poet Paul Valery, and he was obsessed with Poe. So it's perfect. So
Yeah, great.
yeah,
Worlds colliding, dreams within dreams. Here we are.
absolutely.
My
So
main thing.
So have you been dancing since you were young, or did you do this like later in life?
Yeah. So I was performing, I mean, ever since I could remember, probably from the age of like 3 years old. So started, it's a very big thing in Australia, like dance schools, and you do your jazz, tap dancing, ballet classes, all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until I really got to high school that I really got more into acting. So I did a few acting classes and started working with some Shakespeare text and became one of those drama nerds. So yeah, high school was fun, not bullied at all. The drama nerds, we come together, don't we? And I don't know, since then I just sort of got on this bandwagon of working with like really odd text and weird text and H.P. Lovecraft stuff and Poe. And then when I graduated high school, I moved to Melbourne because I'm from a small town called Bendigo. So Bendigo, country girl at heart. And after Melbourne, I got into the Actors Centre Australia, which is in Sydney. So I came to study acting up here. And then I sort of like fell away from the dance and went really hard with the sort of like classical acting and Shakespeare text. But then once I graduated drama school, there's this funny sort of limbo period of like, oh, I'm out in the industry now. How do I make a living out of this? How do I get an agent? And so to pass the time, I started doing burlesque classes because I'd always been interested in burlesque and, the Dino Dimitriadis and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh, burlesque is great because you can create a whole 5-minute show on your own, like with costumes and like you're part of a lineup in a cabaret vaudeville setting. Everything I kind of did was always leaning on Poe and like the gothic and so I kind of became known for that. And then so I couldn't stop it. It was like this snowball effect. So I just kept going with it. And so, yeah, that fed into with my dance background and my burlesque and acting, sort of like creating this kind of like Raven-esque character with feather fans. So I do dancing mainly. And yeah, so that's kind of where all those passions kind of collided to make me this product creature.
It's awesome. It is awesome.
Yes. Yeah. And it fits so well because burlesque, it's something you never actually think of that is still popular in
Yeah.
in theaters, or it's one of those kind of faux pas around here, especially in the United States. It's
Mm,
one of those kind of faux pas artists, artistic venues. In essence, it's like strip clubs. So sorry,
yeah.
but they view
No,
it that way, and I don't
yeah.
understand why, because it's very much it's performance based, and it's wonderful, and it can be
Yeah.
so freeing and artistic. And Poe,
Mhm.
and you developed it wonderfully based
Mm,
on something, because I can see Poe's works just being brought to life and being the most perfect things in a burlesque setting.
Mhm.
yeah. It's a really good point you make, because burlesque for me, what interests me was the satire and the comedy and the parody.
Yes.
Because like, way back in the vaudeville days, like burlesque shows were actually like the comedians and the people bringing on little dogs jumping through hoops, and
Mhm.
then at the end of those shows they would have an exotic dancer, like from some like doing some kind of like salacious dance at the end. And so that's why a lot of the audiences started flocking there, was to see the girl at the end of the show. And then
Yes.
Mhm.
became, rather than what burlesque was, it became known like burlesque is the nudie girl.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then that was the trajectory all the way until the 60s, like 60s and 70s, where it started to become the strip clubs monopolized on that, because they knew
Yes.
people were coming to see the girls, which is, in my opinion, a great thing for feminism. Women
Mhm.
working and empowered to do what they're doing. And then it all just kind of died off. And then there was a resurgence because of Dita Von Teese in the 90s. So,
Mhm.
and then she added like classical burlesque, 50s burlesque into her stripping. And then it became this like, oh, who's this glamorous woman doing all these fantastic fan things and all this kind of stuff. And then that's why the resurgent in like the 2010 all the way till now, the
Mhm.
burlesque, especially in Australia, have just like boomed. They're everywhere.
Okay.
But the thing for me that attracted me to it was the parody and satire. Like, my first routine was actually this like big puffy white kind of like French maid outfit, but I blacked out one of my teeth with some licorice,
Oh,
so that when I came out, people are expecting, oh, a French maid, and then I turn around and I go, and it's like I'm missing my teeth. And the song was something about like, I'm so beautiful, love me. So it was this parody of like this beautiful woman with the body, and then it was like, psych, I'm missing half my teeth. So it's like the like, we call that like, the French word is like joli lad, like ugly beautiful. And
mhm.
so Poe for me marriages those together. Like, you look at like, Lenore and Morella,
Yeah.
and they're beautiful women, but then they die and they're a rotting corpse, but then they come back, and there's
Mhm.
still this beautiful ethereal nature about a dead woman, and she's powerful because she's a ghost, so you can't stop her. um
Exactly.
yeah, that's kind of like what how it reads to me, and how Poe kind of fits in there. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was going to also throw in that there is a huge resurgence of burlesque in the tiki world. My
Mm,
husband and I go to a lot of tiki, like I guess you could say events, I
yeah.
guess, or conventions or whatever you want to call it. And they usually always have a burlesque show, and
Mm,
they do kind of gear it toward something tropical and things like that. But it's just beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
yeah, gorgeous. Yeah, and there's so many different versions of it now, and
Mhm.
you know, go to a burlesque show and you now see the variety. So they will have a stand-up comedian, or they will have some kind of circus artist, especially like the aerial girls and the clowns. Like the clowns, I mean, Cirque du Soleil was touring in Australia recently, and I go to
Mhm.
see the clown. The clown is my favorite part of a Cirque du Soleil show. I'm just like, where's the clown coming in? And and the audience love it, but they don't. And they love and they remember the clown, but they never think to go for the clown. They go for like the whiz bang stuff. But
That's
it's the
true.
yeah, it's like the little nuances of performances that make you remember the show.
Mhm.
So yeah.
It would have been interesting if Poe had written a story about clowns.
Yes.
That would have been, that could have gone really creepy.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. I mean, especially back in his day with like, vaudeville. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, it's like it's hundreds of years old, but it didn't really take off until like the late 19th century.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Sort of,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the, you know, 10s and 20s of the 20th century. But I wonder back then, I mean, obviously, like, I mean, his mother was an actor, like a Shakespearean actor. So he would have been very versed in like Feste and Touchstone, those kinds of like Shakespearean clowns. One character who I do believe is a clown in Poe stories is Signora Psyche Zenobia.
Yes, I love her.
The time and how to write a Blackwood article.
Yes.
Blackwood article. Yeah. She's hilarious, and she's
love her.
parody of a rich woman of the times. It's like a bit of fun of like the aristocracy and women.
Yes, absolutely.
She's hilarious. She's like, I actually played her in one of my Poe performances when I did like, it was the Grotesque and Arabesque.
Okay.
And so I did the Sight of Time monologue as her.
Nice.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is the one thing that I love the most. And we were talking about the history. The closest thing I think in Poe's day would be like a jester at a courtroom, you know, at a king's court or something, would be the closest to him, and what would be, I guess, a vaudeville actor, because like you said, it was more late 1800s when they had the traveling circuses, and then
like Hop Frog, obviously Hop
Yes.
Frog.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Hop Frog, I think, would be the closest thing that would be the clowns, at least for me,
Yeah.
because they are the total, you know, the ones that everybody always wants to come to see, you know, like the bearded lady, you know, the three-legged man, kind of like from Barnum and Bailey's circus type of thing. So yeah, Hop Frog, I think, would be the closest for a burlesque show, but it was more, you know, too far out for the rich odd, you know, thing. So it didn't really give you
Cultured audience.
interest. Yeah.
But yeah, that's funny you mentioned, like, we talk about Hop Frog as well, because when you look at Shakespearean clowns, and I mean, Poe was so inspired by European writings and English writings. You know, having lived in Europe when he was younger with his foster family, he the clown, especially Shakespeare clowns, they are actually the smartest, most intelligent character in the whole story, because they're the ones that get away with saying what they want. So they're at the court making fun of everyone at the court, but the court like that because it's a roast. So they're like, oh, making fun of the king, like, oh, tell us a joke. But also they get to like take the mirror and put it back on society.
Yes.
And making fun of them, but they're also like pointing out their shortcomings. But if you become offended by it, you're agreeing you're a bad person. So like the court and everyone have to laugh along with what the court jester does and all that. But they're always the smartest one, which is why Hop Frog is the victor of that story.
Absolutely.
He's like, I ain't you, but I'm gonna get you, and he does.
Exactly, and he does.
And True Petter, of course, you know. Let's not forget the women in the story.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell us about some of the stories and the poems that you've used in your choreography.
Well, the Raven. I've done a Raven act with big black Isis wings that are on like wooden stave things. So I've done a Raven act, which I think every Poe fan probably has. But my favorite has been my Mask of the Red Death act. So it's a feminist interpretation of the Mask of the Red Death.
Okay.
So as the costume is red couture velvet, big gown, and then the mask is actually a dead horse. So it's based on like the horses of the apocalypse.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Well, it's a skull mask, but it's in the shape of a horse. So it's like the indication of like, you can't escape your fate. You know, death is coming for you, and you know, here's this horse mask. But also representing like the strength of women in Poe stories as well. So that's my favorite routine. I do that quite a bit here in Sydney. And that was part of my Grotesque and Arabesque burlesque show. and I came out of a big like ebony clock. So I had this big ebony clock made, and it swings open and I come out of the clock. So
that is awesome. That is
yeah.
creative.
Yeah, it was good. It's good fun. It's one of my, it's hard to do because the clock, it's sitting right next to me. The clock is so heavy. Like it's just,
imagine, yeah.
Need to get it like shipped there. And I was going to bring it over for Poe Fest last year because I actually performed the routine at the Black Cat Ball, but I couldn't bring the clock because, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
imagine how much that would have cost to bring.
Or even if it made it in one piece.
Yeah, that's
true.
Yeah, I was like, maybe I'll find one over there. I was like, I'll go hunting in some antique stores. I'm like, oh no, this is too much. Just do your dance, Hannah, and get off.
Yes, and I think did you wear the outfit for the costume parade?
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah.
Yes, I remember seeing it. It is absolutely gorgeous. Yes, beautiful.
Yeah, I wore it for the costume parade. I thought like, oh, you know, I'm only performing in it once. I should probably get it seen as much as possible. So as the red bar, the face, and the yeah. It was very hot that day. I will never forget. I mean, I'm an Australian and I know how hot it gets, and I'm there in Baltimore, and I'm like, oh, it's going into autumn, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I'm in these layers of red velvet and this mask and like feathers over my shoulder. And I remember just standing there, just like sweating profusely, just like,
oh
yeah. Keep you cool. You're about to go out there, and then it's like, oh. And then the second the parade was over, I was like, oh, get it off me.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that would be the perfect opportunity for exercise workout because the heat and the humidity and everything and that. Probably lost a few pounds you probably couldn't afford. So you know,
like hot po yoga.
Yes,
exactly. Hot po yoga. There you go.
You may have started a trend.
That's it. Monopolize on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, how do you choose the music styles to go with your choreography? Because that to me, that makes, you know, the to me the choreography is the main piece, but then you've got to add the music with it because it's like how dark do you want it? And it just I'm just kind of interested in that.
It's a good question because I actually work in the reverse. So I find a song that I really like and I go, ooh, that there could definitely be a routine to that song. So I'm inspired by a lot of like 90s music, like Placebo and like David Bowie as well.
Nice.
And so I've done a few routines to some of their songs. So I find a song and I go, oh, I think that the track actually sort of guides the choreo for me. Okay. So I sort of go song, costume, choreo, because especially with burlesque, the choreography is the removing or the like dealing with the costume. So a lot of burly girls work like that. They have an idea or they get a costume made and they're like, look at my amazing new costume. It's like, I can't wait to see the routine. It's like, yeah, it doesn't have one yet.
Oh.
Yeah, because then it becomes like when does this come off and when does that go up and when do the fans come in and how do I so but everyone's different, you know. Some people have, you know, dance routines they've been using for years and then they turn that into burlesque or they change the music. A lot of girls will like, you could do like the same routine or very similar choreo but to different songs or with different costumes, which might sound a bit lazy, but it's also the audience love it because, you know, then you've got a bit of repertoire and you're just mixing things up. So
absolutely. Yeah, because I can see the costume, the visual being a huge part as well. Yeah. Definitely.
Now, how long has your excuse me if I get this wrong, your program in Australia that you created, how long has that been running? You know, when did it start and kind of who was the backing and who has gotten involved since then, I guess is what I'm trying to get to.
So I started it pretty much right after I finished my acting training at drama school. So that would have been like 2012, 2013. And the company used to be called the Burlesque Theatre.
Mhm.
And so the first show we ever did was called Edgar's Girls, and it was actually about all the women in Edgar Allan Poe's life.
Oh, cool.
So Virginia, Muddy, his mother.
Mhm.
And that was great. And then I sort of moved on from that and was like, oh, I don't want all the productions I do to just be about burlesque, because I want to do plays as well.
Mhm.
So, what do I call it? And it like has to sound Poe, but I don't want the burlesque in there. And I was like, and because my middle name is Raven, so I was like, okay, well, I'll just call it Raven Productions Australia.
Yeah.
And then so I was like, cool, that's just the name. And then the shows can be any kind of genre I want to make them. So the last one I did, which I actually just finished last year, was The Telltale Heart, with me as the caretaker, the murderer.
Nice.
Nice.
Feminist interpretation of The Telltale Heart, which actually took me years to get off the ground, because it was already written, but I had to make it, because it's a short story. So you got to flesh it out with action, songs, and then trying to find a venue. Venues are a bit tricky in Sydney, because they're either like the really big giant theatres, which you've got to invest a lot of money and time into, or theatres where you need to get your foot in the door with them. And a lot of them have closed down recently. Like it happens everywhere, but just like the market in Sydney, like real estate's a bit tricky at the moment. So like a lot of companies have gone under, which is really sad. But we keep forward. So yeah, I'd say so how long have I been going for? That's like nearly 12, 14 years. Yeah. Yeah. And then with anything else I do, like if I'm hired to do a job, it'll be under my umbrella company and all of that kind of stuff. So
nice.
Yeah.
That is really cool. So, and you won, is it 1 or 2 Saturday Visitor Awards?
So I want to say like 1.5. So years, I think it was like 5-6 years ago, I was involved in a show called A Midnight Visit, which is the biggest large-scale immersive Edgar Allan Poe show in the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was very inspired and similar to Sleep No More, which was that one in New York about Shakespeare. So this was Poe. So it toured around Australia for about 4 years. And I played Ligeia in that production. So that show then got nominated, and that show won. So I was in that show, which the company won for, which was amazing. And then about 3 years ago, my production, the Grotesque and Arabesque Twisted World of Edgar Allan Poe, won an award as well. So
congratulations on both.
Literal dream come true. Like oh man, it was on my bucket list. I was like, oh, like that's probably the highest honor for me I could ever receive. So I'm like, I'm done. Life's good. Yeah.
Being Poe fans, we completely understand.
Yes, absolutely.
And it was like, especially to be recognized all the way from Australia, like that to me was just such an honor, and something I was really proud of. So
yeah, it is awesome that the Poe Fest in Baltimore is an international sensation. Honestly, I mean, I've been every year, even the COVID, watched it virtually as much as I could, and always have a fantastic time. The entertainment they bring in, everything is really awesome.
Yeah, and they really make that effort as well, because they don't just call it the international festival. Like they make it that. They try to get people there. They especially when everything went online, they had like speakers from Spain and England. Yeah, which is super cool. Which is so incredible that Poe's reach is just now worldwide, like hundreds of after death. Because you think about, like, he went to Europe when he was younger, but then he just stayed around, that East Coast area.
Yeah.
Now, like, people in bloody Sydney, can I say bloody?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Go ahead.
It's we're celebrating him, and that's why I created the Edgar Allan Poe Australia Society.
Yeah.
And it's very small. It's more just like a page and an Instagram, and sort of like every year I try to do the Edgar Allan Poetry Night. So it's just a call out in Sydney to people who want to read Poe.
Nice.
So open mic and you can read poetry you've done yourself. So I try to do that every year to sort of just keep the Poe fans in Australia kind of present.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is amazing his reach today. And it's like he probably would have never thought it would be, his fame would be like it is. It's just it's surreal. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. And he wanted that because, he toured his stories and went to other towns and presented them. He was known for being such a showman. And
yeah,
he would have loved this. Like it's just like fame and fortune after your death, which is so Poe.
I know. It definitely is.
Yeah. And that's also why people are so fascinated with him, because like this odd, mysterious life and his writings, and now he's so famous for, after he's gone.
Exactly. And then the mystery of his death, the way it was, and it's just it's very ironic and just cool. The whole thing is just eerie and yeah, it's awesome. Jeannie, what questions do you have?
Well, I was just kind of thinking that I know when we first started the podcast, we were getting a lot of listeners from like South America.
Yeah.
In that area and stuff. And we were like, wonder how we sound when we translate to either Portuguese or Spanish in that way. But I wonder if they really pick up on how cray-cray we are over po-po. Okay. But so no, like you were saying, it's just one of those things that we talk about, and we would love to know how he would feel to know that his words are still touching so many of us in this day and age. I mean, it's been over 200 years.
Yeah.
And and we've talked about this too. It's like he touches stations of life. Like when I first read him when I was in my preteens, it was a totally different way. It was like I was fascinated because he loved animals. He talked about animals. Now, I didn't read Black Cat because I'm a cat person, but Raven and those kinds of things. And then when you get to mid, 20s, 30s or whatever, you see it in a whole different way.
Yeah.
And you were talking about how Shakespeare was always, he had the Globe Theatre. They always had people just traveling around. Even in the United States, there's traveling Shakespeare companies.
Absolutely.
I would just think it'd be really cool if there was a traveling Poe company.
Yes.
I know.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
It'd just be incredible because his stories are so theatrical. So like when you look at Shakespeare, they're plays, so they're written to be performed. But the argument I constantly hear is that Poe's text is written to be performed, but they're just short stories. And the thing about Poe, I think, that touches people all over the world is the psychological introspection in his writing. And this is way before Freud and all that sort of, the unconscious, conscious. And, obviously philosophers through the decades have talked about, like the subconscious and what it says to us. But, like Poe was not only writing about it, but he was writing about it so well. Like his writing was not didactic. Like he hated didactism. He was known for hating that kind of like, there's a moral to the story. He always, like a poem is a poem for a poem's sake. Like, it was, and writing should be entertaining. So if you've got something to say or you're talking about something that we all know about or we recognize with, it still needs to be told in an entertaining way.
Yeah.
And that's what he did. And they're the two reasons why I think people love Poe so much, is because it is entertaining, but it does also make us think. It does also make us kind of look into ourselves and remember our loves, or like, guilt we've felt, or excitement over like a treasure hunt or something like that. So yeah, he just nailed it. He nailed it.
He does. Very few stories really are, there's not too many that I don't like of Poe. Like, we won't talk about Jeannie's one she hates, but because we always pick on her for that. But
it's not that I hate it as a story. It's just that the story just doesn't do anything for me. It just
Yeah.
makes me irritated because it
Yeah.
is so
It's some
far.
words with a
Yeah.
moment.
Yes, some
Ah,
words with a mommy, no. But no,
that's not
one
what
thing I
I.
love that you were talking about, especially with Poe, is like with the Cask of Amontillado,
Mm,
you can read that story and he tells both sides of the story.
Yes.
yeah.
So at the end of the story, you really don't know who you should be rooting for or whose side you should be on.
Mhm.
He gets you to look at it from both points of view.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the
Yeah.
one thing with all his stories, and that's another thing that draws you to him, that makes
Yeah.
his stories so powerful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And he knows his characters so well. Like they have a very, very clear function within the story. Like the fall of the House of Usher, the twins,
Mhm.
the way he describes their history, the narrator, the friend going to the house, why he's there, what him and his friend talk about.
Mhm.
And then the imagery within the writing with
Yeah.
Madeline and her disheveled nature and the house crumbling. And it's just,
Ah,
yeah, the descriptive nature of his text is just, that's why, they kind of lump him in the decadent period of writers. And
yeah.
that's why Child loved Poe, because he was all about decadence and he was very inspired by Poe's writing and, the descriptive nature in The Raven and the Purple Curtains. And
Mhm.
yeah, so
Absolutely.
delicious.
Yes, it is.
Very much.
So,
Very
so how did you get introduced to Poe?
Ah, I love this question. Okay. So about I wasn't that young. I was probably about 22 or 23.
Okay.
And I'd known about Poe, I'd read a couple of things, but there's a very quirky director here in Australia called Barry Kosky,
Okay.
and he directs operas, and he's known for directing operas with big, like, odd costumes, and the costumes sometimes have like body parts and
Oh,
sometimes
wow.
like there is the head things. Like it's very, very avant-garde. Anyway, he directed a one-man version of The Telltale Heart
Oh,
years ago. It was like 2002 or something like that.
okay.
So long, and I'll never forget it. It was like the lights went down and you're waiting for the show to begin,
Mhm.
and nothing happens. Nothing happens. Pure, complete blackness. 2 minutes go by. Nothing happens. People are thinking, oh, are the lights not working? And then all of a sudden, like, I thought I could see a face on the stage. And I was like, it's like my mind's just playing tricks on me. Then this tiny face just appears. So they had this spotlight pointed very poignantly on face, and it faded up slowly, I reckon over the course of like 5 minutes. And then it just revealed a man sitting on a staircase. And everyone's like, and then all of a sudden, this cha-cha music just goes bum ba-dum, like, and scares the audience out. I was just like, and it's that song I Could Have Danced All Night from My Fair Lady.
Oh
Yes,
yes.
The character just sitting still, the lights slowly coming up, and I've never been so immersed in a show in my entire life.
that is awesome.
I, I wish he'd bring it back. I should just send him an email, just like do it again.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
it was obviously the Telltale Heart, the caretaker and the murderer, and just just a one-man play. And yeah, I left there going, wow, I need to read Poe, and that was it. And then I was hooked, completely hooked.
Oh, that is amazing.
That would
Yeah,
hook me just with
Yeah.
that type of
yeah,
beginning and that. Oh,
Yeah. I mean,
it makes me want to
yeah,
see it.
yeah, it's
yeah.
intense. It's intense, but it just yeah, I can't imagine all the emotions watching it.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, that inspired me. That was like nearly 20 years ago to do
Wow.
the Telltale Heart myself. I was
Mhm.
like, God, it worked so well as a one-man play. And I'm like, all right, let's, bring the one-woman show. And so
Yeah.
I did that last year, which I'm hoping to bring to you guys next
Yeah.
post season, or
Yeah.
some version of it.
Yeah.
Because I was at the festival last year for the first time, and I was like, oh, I have to come every year now. I'm just gonna have to budget it in and be there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I will
Right.
definitely be there. Jeannie has not gotten to come yet, and so we're trying to get her there too. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Very
Oh,
cool.
it'll be so much fun.
Will
Yeah.
show up when you never expect it to.
That's true.
Yeah. It's creeping.
I'm like, Exactly. I'm the bad penny that, I'll just creep in and like, woohoo, I'm here.
Yeah, because sometimes she is the voice behind the curtain, like Oz. She sometimes is not showing herself, but
Yeah, I usually use pictures instead of my face because I'm
Yes.
like, no, just keep it guessing, people. Keep it guessing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the alias, the veil.
Absolutely. So, okay, so you got hooked on Poe and with that show. So what do you have a favorite short story and poem, or is one or the other, like some people have one of each, some people just say this is definitively my favorite.
I will say controversially, I'm more of a fan of his short stories than his poetry.
Yeah.
I think maybe because I'm an actor, and so I like the characters and like the linear or the like beginning, middle, and end of things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So my favorite is definitely the case of M. Valdemar with the melting away of the bodies. Oh, it's just rotten. Like it's but it takes the course of actions that it takes to get to that point is just, it's so well written, like the hypnotism and then coming to visit the body, and he's like, I could perceive a faint breath, and it's like, is he dead or is he not? And then we wakes him up and he's been rotting for weeks, and it just my favorite thing about Poe stories is that they just end. The ends of stories are just like the end. It's like in Pit and the Pendulum, it's like all this horrible stuff happens and then I was saved. And and what ties it up really quickly, which is a good dramatic kind of like a technique he uses, because it's about the like entertainment of the story. But yeah, Valdemar definitely. I remember reading that and just being like, this is the imagery and the visuals was just disgusting, and I was like, oh, I was really taken by that.
Yeah, he's real good about giving you the, oh wow, I can't stop reading it. It's like that train wreck that you watch in the news, and you just like, the more gore, the more is like, you can't stop. You just can't stop.
You really can't look away. You just got to keep reading.
Yes.
But I mean, poetry wise, I would say, I'd have to say The Raven. Like, I just,
it's so
like
good.
The musicality of it is just so good, and the imagery, it's a work of art. It really is. And it's why, like, you guys are so lucky. Like, in high school, you guys study it and you study Poe, but in because like we don't study Poe at all. Like, he's not really on the syllabus for us. Which we need to change that.
Yes.
Because it's interesting because like because I teach high school English. Jeannie is a teacher, and she's taught high school English too. And it's very interesting because like fresh, ninth grade year, the kids kind of, well, ninth and 10th kind of do world language, world literature. And so you get a little bit of European, you get a little bit really just everywhere, like, because we have a wonderful short story we read from Japan the first night, and we get American as well. And then junior year is all American literature. They don't do anything else. And then senior year, they do British literature. So they get like in high school, in an American high school, you get a very well-rounded introduction to all kinds of authors, poets, satirists, playwrights, you name it.
Great. Yeah, like we study a lot of European stuff, like a lot of English and a lot of Shakespeare, which is great. Like we have, like I do recall my friend saying that her daughter had to do The Raven for a speech at high school and wanted it, and I was like, oh my God, this is great. And I was like, did they tell her she had to do it or she chose it? And she was like, no, she chose it. And I was like, yes,
nice,
there are more of us. We're multiplying.
The newer generation is coming with us. Woohoo!
Yeah, absolutely.
Come on down.
Yeah, because go ahead.
Oh, just like Poe minions, I wanted to create, the Edgar Allan Poe Society of Australia, because I was like, every time I would do something Poe, people would reach out and go, I've always loved Poe. I love Poe. I love Poe. And I was like, oh, well, we need to do more Poe, So yeah.
No, I was gonna say because we just finished Romeo and Juliet, and in this particular 9 weeks, Annabelle is part of our curriculum. So I just
Right.
did with some of my students, just post background, and we did Annabelle, and they that's a poem that they absolutely love.
Yeah, nice.
Love
Yeah,
that. And
beautiful.
it really is kind of cool talking about the star-crossed love connection to Romeo and Juliet, because when I never had
Yeah.
thought about it until I started teaching it with Romeo and Juliet, and there
Mm.
really is some nice ties to it. The
Yeah. Yeah.
star-crossed love.
Yeah. I think especially with Poe's poetry, like he was writing since he was young. Like the other poem that comes
Mhm.
to Lake, um, which I adore, and he wrote that when he was 19, apparently.
Yeah, that's a beautiful one.
And it
Mhm.
and a lot of artists have like recorded, like sung it and recorded it and been inspired by the lake. So he
Mhm.
wrote that at 19, and so he had this very specific skill from a very young age, because he went to university and he studied, and he was quite well educated. He didn't like see any of it through. He
Right.
was sort of, he knew what he wanted to do. He learned how to do it, and then he went out and did it.
Yeah.
And they say he was the first American writer to try and make a living as a writer.
Yes. Mhm.
First American writer to try and do that, because all the others were from money or dukes or barons, or like Lord Byron, and so they were just writing their spare time, and they got famous because they had the platform. But
Yeah.
here's Poe in his like no shirt, torn jacket, trying to like look great, be like, read my poetry.
He
Absolutely.
was
Sword.
Oh,
he was the first long-suffering artist to try to get his medium out there for the people.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
absolutely. Oh, I know. And
I think that's another reason we connect so much with him.
yeah.
Yeah. There's the poster boy for the struggling artists.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Hannah, what is coming up next for you? What are you working on?
Oh, okay. So the Telltale Heart that I did,
Mm-hmm.
that it exists. The plan is to then tour it in Australia and hopefully bring it over to you guys.
Okay.
So that play will have another life sometime this year. The Edgar Allan Poetry Night will be coming up in a few months' time. There's a fringe festival that happens here, so I put that on every year.
Oh, nice.
So those are the two things that I'm sort of like moving towards.
Okay.
At the moment, I am performing in a play called Ophelia Thinks Harder at the KXT Theatre in Sydney.
Mhm.
So it's a feminist retelling of Hamlet. So it's about
Oh,
it's
awesome.
it was written in the 90s. It's pretty funny. It's Hamlet, but from Ophelia's perspective.
Okay.
Mm,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm playing Rosencrantz, so I get to get my clown on a bit. So
nice.
I'm doing that at the moment. And then also just burlesquing. I'm a regular resident artist at the Talk and Tease burlesque show in Sydney.
Okay. All right.
The Pleasure Club in Sydney as well.
Mhm.
And wherever else I can get hired. Really? Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Performing is the name of the game.
Yes.
I know. Just keep going and put yourself out there and see who's interested.
There
Absolutely.
you go.
Well, I hope it works out that you can
Mhm.
bring the Telltale Heart over here. We will be
Right.
first in line to get tickets.
Yeah.
That'll be
Hey, what?
awesome.
I better get rehearsed. Oh gosh.
Yeah, we'll be front row going, woohoo, let's
Yeah.
go.
Yes. And
And I'll be like, quiet bit. Creeping up with my lantern. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, that's all right.
that's
Yay.
Go
awesome.
for it. Swing your
Mm.
lantern at me. You knock me in the head, it'd be fun.
Yeah. So Hannah, tell our viewers and listeners where all can they find you, like on
In
social media.
Australia.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can find me at ravenproductionsaustralia.com. That's our website.
Okay.
That's also on Instagram and Facebook. Same. Also, the Edgar Allan Poe Australia is on Facebook and Instagram. And through our website with the Raven production site, you can also find, there's a bit of a blog on the Poe Australia stuff that I've done. So
Okay.
kind of there. And then my Instagram's just hannah.raven.smith.
Okay.
So now you so that's me. That's where I'm at.
Awesome.
A fellow Smith. It's got to be.
Yes. I know
We're
everything's
everywhere.
okay. There's always like a Jones or a Smith at the end there. I was like, keep it simple.
Exactly. I make the joke all the time when I have to check in with anybody, and I was like, yes, that is my real name. I'm not doing an alias today.
That's the one. Yep. Born with it.
Yep. Born of it.
Yes.
Know it. Love it.
Jeannie,
So,
do you have anything else?
I just want to say thank you, Hannah. It's been a pleasure, and I'm so happy that you are taking Poe to another level.
Yes.
Because it is something that I can foresee his works just being very successful in that in that venue. So thank you, and keep on keeping on, and I'll wish you all the best.
Yes.
Thank you both for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, it has been awesome talking with you.
Yes, and hopefully, good Lord willing, the creek don't rise, as my old saying goes from the East Tennessee, is that we'll probably see you come up in October.
Yes.
That's it. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I guess
All right.
on that
note, we are
Poe
out.